Chain Drug Review and Mass Market Retailers Video Forum. Brought to you by the Emerson Group.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Wolt, Editor-in-Chief of Chain Drug Review and Mass Market Retailers. Welcome to our video forum. Today, we're thrilled to have as our guest Kevin Host, Senior Vice President of Pharmacy at Walmart and the incoming Chairman of the National Association of Chain Drugstores. Kevin, always good to see you.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. Good to see you too.
Let me begin by just asking you, as you get ready to take on this role at the association, how do you view NACDS and the industry that it represents?
You know, NACDS is a wonderful organization. I've been proud to be a part of it for the last several years, and most recently serving as its vice chairman. I think it's continued to have an impact throughout my career. I would say even before I knew it really existed. I got my start in the chain drugstore industry many years ago. One of my first jobs was with Payless drugstores out in California. And the industry has evolved tremendously since those days. NACDS itself has a 90-year legacy that's just really admirable and incredible. So I'm very much looking forward to serving as its chairman next year.
And what priorities will you have as you take that job?
Yeah, I think the priorities that we're looking at are nothing new. We've been focused on this for many years now. I think the next phase of pharmacy is one that focuses on accessibility. We need to create convenient kind of omni-channel experiences for the communities that we serve. And there's three key components that the NACDS has been focused on. I'd say number one is pharmacists as providers. So pharmacists can do so much more than what they currently do, and they already are to a large extent, but we need to have more push around legislative and regulatory changes to just further enable and I'd say what would allow pharmacists to be able to practice at the top of their training and at the top of their license. So that's number one. Number two is PBM reform. I think we just continue to do all that we can to push PBM reform. Ultimately, we need to maintain a quality of care and access for all Americans, and we need structural changes that'll enable that. Third, I would say is a future of care. So pharmacists are already one of the most trusted healthcare professionals just in general. And I think one example of this is in the future that we'll be looking to lean into is nutrition, food as medicine. Just what role can pharmacists play in that as we treat the kind of whole health and the total person?
Let me drill down on a couple of the points you made. DIR reform remains a very thorny issue. I know lots of effort has gone in by NACDS and others over the years to get some relief. Congress still seems to be stuck on it, though. Is there an opportunity to nudge that along, or what needs to be done? And also, how do things look at the state level? Is that something perhaps more effort could be put into?
I would say that there is really strong bipartisan support for accomplishing these types of reforms. And the industry is really, I think, finally speaking with one voice. It's not just the chain drugstores, but independent pharmacies are also standing together, all of which should benefit the customers and the patients. So that will absolutely continue to remain a tremendous focus of ours. You asked about the state level, and NACDS has looked into this. There are about 150 new laws that have been passed at the state level over the last 3 years or so that have brought about aspects of reform to PBM practices. And so, the NACDS, the membership of NACDS is going to continue to press for smart legislation and good enforcement of that legislation that does get passed. We want to make sure that reasonable reforms are as effective as they possibly can be and absolutely need to be.
How concerned are you that if this doesn't get done, if we don't get some relief, that we're going to see more and more pharmacies go out of business? I think particularly of the NCPA report that I believe said, if I recall correctly, as many as a third of their members might have to close their doors if there's no relief on the PBM front.
It's very concerning. I think that we have seen the pressure on pharmacies mounting for many, many years now. In the last couple of years, we've actually seen the market start to consolidate. There are less pharmacies out there now than there were even just 5 years ago. So the time is now. PBM reform has never been more important to maintaining this industry. But really, in maintaining the industry, you're maintaining that access and that point of care that so many Americans rely on. So it's absolutely critical. And I think if we don't get some meaningful reform in the near future, we're going to continue to see shrinking and more limitations to access for Americans. And that's going to hit the communities that need it the most, the hardest.
That raises the whole question of health equity. As you indicated, if more stores close, that's going to become a bigger problem. How involved is the association in that issue?
Yeah, very involved. And I would say, PBM reform is just that in a lot of ways, trying to ensure that access continues. We already know that there's a lack of access in certain communities in rural America. And we're seeing pharmacy deserts emerge. So it's never been more critical, but that is the mission, that is within the mission of NACDS and part of a broader push to just make sure that access is equitable across the country.
Earlier, you cited as a priority expanding the scope of pharmacy practice, enabling members of the profession to do more. Specifically, what types of things would you like to see them do that they can't today?
There's a lot of clinical training that pharmacists receive in pharmacy school, and their ability to assess for disease states and provide treatments is unquestionable. So think about things like flu. With the technologies that exist today and with the training that pharmacists have, it's very easy and now available in some states where pharmacists can actually do the clinical assessment, they can perform diagnostic testing, and they can prescribe the therapies that are necessary for flu treatments. The same is true for COVID, as well as strep throat. So we want to continue to push on that and we want to push on laws that enable pharmacists to practice at the top of their training. And it's going to require state level changes that enable that scope of practice. Some other areas are birth control prescribing. Pharmacists are again able to assess and prescribe the right kind of hormonal birth control therapies that some women would want to take, or HIV prevention therapies. The list kind of goes on, but those are some of those that are at kind of top of mind right now.
You recently took part in RX Impact Day in Washington. After your meetings with senators and congressmen and their staff members, did you leave more optimistic or less?
I absolutely came away more optimistic. And I've been optimistic. I think I kind of am by nature and been working at this for a long, long time. But it's always very energizing when you can gather together with a bunch of pharmacy professionals and advocate other advocates from across the country in a place like DC. So we've been engaged we at Walmart have been engaged in larger advocacy efforts for a long, long time. But RX Impact Day had about 300 folks from all 50 states and the District of Columbia come together. And I think, we shared a really impactful message that just resonated. We also had a chance to meet with officials from HHS and CMS and the administration, but collectively, the NACDS members that were there engaged in 284 meetings that day. So we actually met with more than half of the entire US Congress, almost 3/4 of the US Senate. And we weren't just there educating, like I've done many, many times in the past, but we were actually calling for action. And so we weren't talking about generalities. We were talking very specifically about how Congress can help to make Medicare provider status happen, for example, or how to make PBM reform happen. So we we always do this, but we highlighted the importance of what I just talked about, helping Americans maintain access to their pharmacists and pharmacy services that they've enjoyed throughout COVID and on the heels of COVID. But we also wanted to show support for HR 1770, Senate Bill 2477, which we call ECAPS, and that stands for Equitable Community Access to Pharmacist Services. So we have more than 100 bipartisan members of the U.S. House of Representatives who support HR 1770. There's nearly 200 organizations, including folks from rural health advocacy groups, senior advocacy groups, patient advocacy organizations who have either signed on to this or voiced their support for this legislation. So, the NACDS just continues to apply pressure and just help build momentum. And RX Impact Day was just that. So, it all comes down to the importance of pharmacy as a healthcare destination for so many people. And I was so happy to be a part of that this year.
You mentioned some of the partners NACDS is working with. I know NCPA also participated in the press conference you had at RX Impact Day. How important are those alliances in getting critical mass in terms of support for pharmacy issues?
Yeah, they're critically important. And I would say NACDS has done a great job of reaching out to other partner organizations and that are potentially like-minded. NCPA is a great example of that. And so if you just look at pharmacy, kind of the pure pharmacy effort here, we've got chain drugstores and independent pharmacies, standing tall and standing together. And, the alliances extend well beyond that. But I think the NACDS has just done a great job of tearing down barriers and creating a place that allows for common ground. So it's powerful to be in DC when you can say that we're speaking as one voice in that way.
We understandably have talked primarily about pharmacy and healthcare, but there are also a lot of members and associate members who are involved in the front end business. There are challenges there, no doubt. What can NACDS do? What more can NACDS do to support that part of the business?
The NACDS is obviously often known for its push around pharmacy and policies that affect pharmacy, but it also does a lot with companies that operate on the front end. And I think every pharmacy out there has a front end in one way, shape, or form. And so the NACDS meetings themselves attract nearly 400 associate companies, from the front end and the back end, if you will. There's over 1,300 people that'll be in attendance at the annual. And it provides a lot of opportunities for interaction, cross-functional collaboration. And so, the NACDS absolutely sees its role as facilitating connections between retailers and suppliers, but it goes well beyond that. So we strive to bring kind of substantive value by addressing critical issues and driving some more meaningful discussions. So, for example, NACDS is really involved in gathering industry insights as well as researching initiatives. So things around loss prevention, shrink, how to apply artificial intelligence, how to create better experiences, front-end experience for customers, more efficient workflows for our teams. How can we work with retail media companies and networks that can shape stories and deliver content at a local level? So this is an area where the NACDS just really excels, and the Retail Advisory Board is an example of where we bring together folks from the front end, from the back end to discuss everything I just mentioned and look for not only solutions, but potential trends that may or may not resonate with our members. And then we work together to kind of shape and incorporate those trends into our member companies. So the NACDS thinks very broadly, and it takes a lot of different groups ultimately to really just best service the customer in a way that we all want to. So So the NACDS does a great job of pulling front end and back end teams, pharmacy teams and merchandising teams together in this 360 approach to the customer.
Mm-hmm. Kevin, a final question for you. You're indicating that we're seeing innovation and change. How do you look at the future of community pharmacy, 5 years out or 10 years out? Where do you think we'll be?
I love this question, Jeff, because when I graduated pharmacy school, pharmacists couldn't even give immunizations. And when COVID rolled around, we gave 2/3 of all the shots that were given in this country. And so, in fact, the CDC just published a report that mentioned the irreplaceability of pharmacy. So that only took about 20 some odd years to get to that point, from my graduation. And we're finally now just at the early stages of unlocking that pharmacist ability to do testing and diagnostic and treatment services for patients. So as I look ahead, I think our trends are going to accelerate. So where it may have taken, 10 years to get kind of full authority for immunization and another 10 years to get to full scale, I can see us getting, to full scale in some of these pharmacist-led clinical services over the next 5 to 10 years. And it's very exciting. I also look at the work that the NACDS Foundation is doing around health and nutrition. And it's facilitating research and partnerships with organizations like the Milken Institute or partnerships with Tufts to try and figure out what else can pharmacists be doing? In this case, more specifically in the area of nutrition and food as medicine. So there's still a lot to be learned. I think that the foundation will ultimately publish some incredible information, some studies around the full potential of what pharmacy could do in some of these new spaces like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, these are exciting and challenging times, and I think the association and the industry are fortunate to have you in the lead. So congratulations on your chairmanship, and look forward to seeing you in Palm Beach.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff, and it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you too.